Hi everyone, my name is Phoebe and welcome to my van life channel where I share some of my van life experiences with you. Today's video is a long time coming, highly requested, and much awaited for solar setup video. I've put off making this video for months because I'm not an expert and I just DIY'd everything, so it's important for you to hear this first. Keep in mind that I'm not a professional electrician and don't have any certificate. These are based on my first-hand experience with the products that I use and how I use them. Should you try to recreate this setup, it should be at your own risk. Now that's out of the way, let's get on with the video. Alright, let's start with the materials. First, you're gonna need a solar panel, solar charge controller, deep cycle battery, 220 volt inverter, and heavy-duty battery wires to connect them all together. Of course, you will need a solar panel because this is what harvests the energy from the sun. The solar charge controller is what controls the energy being harvested by the sun so it won't overcharge the battery. It tells me the battery percentage, voltage coming in and out, and the battery temperature. It also shows when there's an error with wiring. This is where the harvested energy is being stored. It acts as a power bank which holds 12 volt current. It is best to use deep cycle battery because they are made for solar setup. This gadget is what converts the 12 volt current from a battery to 220 volts. Most of the Philippines appliances are 220 like the rice cooker, TV, fan, etc. Lastly, the wires. These color-coded wires are what I use to connect all these gadgets. These wires are actually heavy-duty jumper cables that I got from Blade. Notice that they have crocodile clips. It is best to replace them with a battery terminal so there's no energy spill. The seller gave me battery terminals so I didn't have to buy them. Please don't be stingy when it comes to your electrical setup because first, you don't want to get electrocuted, and second, you don't want short circuits that could lead to fire. All of these I found online either through Shopee or Facebook Market. 200 watt solar panel was 7,000, MPPT solar charge controller 4,500, 150 amp hour deep cycle battery was 8,000, and my first inverter was a 4,000 watts solar inverter which was 2,700, and the wires are 1,000, which totals to about 23,200. First, you're going to connect the solar panel to the solar charge controller. If everything is wired correctly, the solar charge controller will turn on. Then, you're going to connect the deep cycle battery to the solar charge controller. After which, you can connect the deep cycle battery to the inverter. If it's wired correctly, you can turn on the inverter and you will get 220 volts, which then powers household items. It is best to remember that no wires should touch the metal of the van. Positive and negative wires should never touch. This is the actual solar charge controller. The icons indicate solar panel, battery, load, and error. This is the display screen. Below are just some buttons and product specifics. These are the screw heads to tighten the wirings. On the bottom is where you'll find the holes to insert the wirings. It is very specific so you won't make a mistake. PV positive is photovoltaic's positive wire, or the solar panel's positive wire, and PV negative is for the solar's negative wire. This is the positive and negative wire from the solar panel. I just drilled a hole on the roof of the van and trailed the wires to the solar charge controller. Again, it's good practice to start with a negative wire first. So here I am just wiring the solar setup. It is important to make sure it's screwed in tightly to avoid energy spills. Now I'm going to start with a positive wire. Notice how the solar charge controller turned on. The battery icon is blinking because there's no battery wired in yet. That's also the reason why the error icon is lit. In the display screen, the battery is empty and it's reading 0. So next, we're going to wire in the battery. My battery is sideways to avoid tipping it over when I'm driving. I already wired in the negative and I'll show you how to wire the positive because they're basically the same. This is the battery terminal that I was talking about. This is the screw to attach it to the deep cycle battery. Now, we're just going to connect the wire to the battery slots. Notice how the error light turned off and the battery is being recognized. You'll know you wired it correctly because it shows the energy feed from the solar to the battery. It also shows that the battery is at 100%. This is how it looks like when wired. This is my new inverter. I'll just clip the connections to the battery. Remember, negative to negative, and positive to positive. If it's wired correctly, it should turn on, giving you 220 volts. Computation is simple. I have a 150 amp hour deep cycle 12 volts battery, which is equivalent to 1,800 watts. I got the computation from rapidtables.com. If you have a battery with a different value, just Google search amp hour to watts. My battery consumption and how long it lasts depends on the appliances I use. If, say for example, I'm going to use these two fans simultaneously, it's equivalent to 70 watts. 1,800 watts divided by 70 watts is equals to 25.71 hours. That means if I use just these two fans starting with 100% battery, it's going to be 25 hours before the battery reaches 0. If I'll use just the cooler, the battery can last up to about 20 hours. If I was to use a 500 watts AC, it'll be 3.6 hours. But one thing you have to know about solar batteries is that they are not allowed to drain below 50%. If it goes below 50%, the battery quality will go down. That means the battery will only last to only about 50% of its capacity. It's best to always check the battery percentage in the solar charge controller. I don't know why, but that's just the way it is. Now let's talk about how I use the solar when I'm off-grid so I won't run out of electricity. There's 24 hours in a day and roughly about 11 hours or so with decent light. During those 11 hours are when my battery renews the energy or recharge. Now looking at the chart, let's start at 2200 hours or 10 p.m. That's the usual time Pam and I sleep. We normally sleep from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. During those times, the only appliances that are running are the 2 fans. There's absolutely no charging of gadgets allowed at night because there's no renewable energy. At 6 a.m., the usual battery reading is at 70 to 76%. We normally get up at 8 a.m. During these times, there's decent amount of sunlight and the solar battery is back to 100%. We turn off our fans and we start charging our gadgets. We have 3 power banks and it's very important that we charge those first thing in the morning because we'll need it at night. We can use all the electricity we want from the time we wake up until 2 p.m. But when the sun starts to lose its light, we stop charging our gadgets and we let the solar battery load back to 100%. This is so that we'll have enough electricity to run the fans at night and we can sleep comfortably. Solar electricity is almost unlimited during daytime, but it's very limited at night. You have to have a routine to make it work. That's it, guys. I hope you liked the video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you guys for watching. See you on the next one.